need to know about Terence McKenna. Terence McKenna inspired my psychedelic curiosity as a kid. He took my mind towards vast landscapes of hyperspace and DMT elves. And I know he did the same for a lot of you guys out there. I have a collection of very rare but meaningful Terence McKenna clips that you need to see that have been on my hard drive for 15 years. And I think it's the perfect time to show you guys my vault of Terence McKenna content. But before we go on, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to follow on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Tipado. One of my favorite Terence McKenna quotes is, "Culture is not your friend." But what does that mean? Well, let Terence tell you.
Culture is not your friend. Culture is for other people's convenience and the convenience of various institutions, churches, companies, tax collection schemes, what have you. It is not your friend. It insults you. It disempowers you. It uses and abuses you. None of us are well treated by culture. And yet we glorify, the creative potential of the individual, the rights of the individual. We understand the felt presence of experience is what is most important, but the culture is a perversion. It fetishizes objects. It creates consumer mania. It preaches endless forms of false happiness, endless forms of false understanding in the form of squirrely religions and silly cults. It invites people to diminish themselves and dehumanize themselves by behaving like machines, meme processors of memes passed down from Madison Avenue and Hollywood and what have you.
This next clip is really a great summary of what Terence McKenna is about. He explains what is the purpose of psychedelics.
My notion of what the psychedelic experience is for is that we each must become like fishermen and go out onto the dark ocean of mind and let your nets down into that sea. And what you're after is not some behemoth that will tear through your nets, foul them, and drag you and your little boat, into the abyss, nor are what we're looking for a bunch of sardines that can slip through your net and disappear. Ideas like, have you ever noticed that your little finger exactly fits your nostril, and stuff like that. What we are looking for are middle-sized ideas that are not so small that they're trivial and not so large that they're incomprehensible, but middle-sized ideas that we can wrestle into our boat and take back to the folks on shore and have fish dinner. And every one of us, when we go into the psychedelic state, this is what we should be looking for. It's not for your elucidation. It's not part of your self-directed psychotherapy. You are an explorer, and you represent our species. And the greatest good you can do is to bring back a new idea, because our world is endangered by the absence of good ideas. Our world is in crisis because of the absence of consciousness. And so to whatever degree any one of us can bring back a small piece of the picture and contribute it to the building of the new paradigm, then we participate in the redemption of the human spirit. And that, after all, is what it's really all about.
And of course you've heard of stoned ape theory, the idea that humanity really evolved because of our psychedelic use. I'm sure you've heard it a lot on different podcasts, but there was one person who invented this theory, and it was Terence McKenna. Now let him tell you in this very rare interview.
The mushrooms grow in the manure of the cattle. When the hunting packs of early primates followed along behind the cattle, they inevitably encountered the mushroom, ate it, had their visual skills thereby increased, bred more readily, therefore, and survived more easily than their non-mushroom eating cousins. And so the eating of mushrooms and the development of higher aspects of consciousness, including self-reflection, were thereby enforced, leading to the conclusion that it was actually a symbiotic relationship between early primates and these hallucinogenic plants that laid the basis for the appearance of what we call human beings.
Well, Terence McKenna, this is a very interesting discussion. You seem to be suggesting that our evolution, I suppose, from the animal kingdom into the human kingdom itself was catalyzed or triggered by our encounter with these hallucinogenics. And
yes, we are an ape with a symbiotic relationship to a mushroom, and that has given us self-reflection, language, religion, and all the spectrum of effects that flow from these things.
yeah, and one can only wonder how these hallucinogens might affect our future evolution as well.
They have brought us to this point, and as we make our relationship to them conscious, we may be able to take control of our future evolutionary path.
Terence McKenna, thank you very much for being with me.
It was a pleasure.
Now imagine Alexander Shulgin, the creator of so many different psychedelics, including 2CB, all the 2Cs, and many, many more, talking to Terence McKenna in Prague. In this clip, Alexander Shulgin's talking about his desire to dive deep into the tryptamine class of psychedelics. And keep in mind, this was right before he published his famous book, Tikal, which is right here. Watching these two legends talk about psychedelics is a real nice treat, so enjoy.
Well, someone mentioned to me that you had expressed interest now that you felt you had sort of done the work you wanted to do with cyclicized phenylethylamines and that you were going back to looking at tryptamine.
Very much so. That's the other side of the coin. It's as rich and unexplored areas of phenethylamines were 20 years ago.
So are you going to illuminate it for us?
Oh, absolutely. I've already made the T-butyl methyl, isopropyl methyl is well known, but the secondary butyl methyl is not known. They're all active by smoking.
And what are they, could you, in a blind test, pick one out from another, or are they sort of...
I don't know yet. I doubt it somehow. I think they're all going to be fast, impactful, and all very much like DMT.
Duration-wise or presentationally?
Probably perhaps a little bit more potent.
A little bit more potent?
DMT is not that all-fired potent. It takes, 10, 20, 50, no more, 50, 100 milligrams.
50 to 70
and some of these we're
milligrams.
getting into maybe at 20 and 30 milligrams, but not active oil. You have to get up to a certain degree of shrubbery on the nitrogen to get oral activity.
And how many of these compounds do you imagine there are that are
At
simple
casually you can make
variants?
30, 40, 50.
Why do you suppose it is that this fast-acting, easily manufactured, spectacular hallucinogen is so rarely met in the underground?
I don't know. I've heard that it's there in some quantity. I heard about a seizure in Boston, I believe it was of ayahuasca. And they seized it on the basis that it contained DMT.
Right, that was the Santo Daime
Yes,
people
right,
from
right,
Brazil. But, we live in a society where people jump out of airplanes and hang by bungee cords over bridges. And DMT, which is always described as an easy synthesis,
It is extremely easy.
is just not there.
I have no idea.
It violates one of these economic laws,
basic laws.
Gresham or Graham or somebody.
Another popular idea Terence McKenna talked about is the complexity of the universe and how complexity increases over time, which is something that is fundamentally true. So check out this clip from 1997 in which Terence McKenna went to Sydney, Australia to expound on his idea of complexity.
There is a very important part of life which has been ignored by science, and because this is a scientific society we're locked inside of, we've gotten a distorted view of it, and that is there's a quality to reality that everybody can feel, everybody experiences, We all know it, and yet we get no reinforcement for its existence from the models that our culture venerates. And what I want to talk about is what I call novelty, or the appetite for complexity that permeates nature, that is in fact as fundamental a law of nature, if not more fundamental, than the laws of thermodynamics themselves. And this is the idea that nature loves complexity, and wherever it achieves complexity, in a membrane, in the center of a star, in an organism, in a breeding population of animals or plants, wherever it achieves complexity, it seeks to preserve it, and it seeks to use it as a platform for further complexity. This is what the universe is. It's a complexity generating engine of some sort on all levels, not only in biology but in physics. If you look backward in time, the universe becomes more simple. 1 million years ago, there was no human civilization. 100 million years ago, there were very few mammals. 1 billion years ago, life had yet to emerge onto the land. 5 billion years ago, the planet itself was in the process of condensing. If you go back to the domain of the Big Bang, you find a world, a universe of pure electron plasmas, not even atomic systems, still less molecular systems. All that lies in the future. So in a sense, as the universe ages, as it cools, it complexifies. It becomes more novel. And biology on this planet, since we only know of its presence here and in a Martian meteorite discovered last summer, complexity on this planet finds its concrescence in animal life, still more in ourselves. The reason I mention this is because the scientific model of reality tells you that we are the chance-created witnesses of an actually valueless universe. Chance and necessity. This is the chant of science. But looking at the record, it appears nature favors organization, favors complexity, and therefore favors ourselves. Because we represent animal complexity plus culture, plus phonetic alphabets, plus high technology. So the universe has put all of its eggs, or at least the processes of evolution on this planet, have placed all their bets in the human world. But this raises the stakes, makes the situation far less existential, and makes what we do with our human freedom a matter of great import. It turns out we count. We are more than witnesses. We are more than victims. We are, in fact, co-creators of this universal tendency to complexification. And in the psychedelic experience, we see the culmination of this process, a kind of anticipation of ultimate complexity, where information is holographically embedded and all things become possible. All things are now possible in the human world.
Okay, now we saw Terence McKenna and Alexander Shulgin. What about Terence McKenna and Ram Dass? Yes, once again, in Prague. Two absolute legends getting down in a psychedelic conversation in the middle of a cafe in the Czech Republic. Extraordinary stuff. Let's check it out.
Well, so my question to you is, are psychedelics a miracle?
Psychedelics are a miracle, yes. They may not be the only miracle.
Are they the miracle we need?
I don't know that. I don't know that. I think they may have already done what they were to do.
Really? That's interesting.
I think
I've never heard anybody
I think
say
what is done is so much more powerful than anybody yet recognizes. See, I see all this destruction is just the process of transformation. The question is whether we'll keep it together in the process of transformation. And that's why all I'm interested in doing is becoming a person and helping others become a person who, in the process of the dramatic stuff, will keep some equanimity and there's some love and some presence in that process. But that's, psychedelics may play a role in that. So you're right, that comes back to your question.
Well, see, my assumption in trying to think about thousands of psychedelic trips rather than just mine, what they seem to do generically is they seem to dissolve boundaries.
Yes.
And the ego is in the business of creating, maintaining, and defending boundaries. So I really see the psychedelics as directly intervening in the core process which is running us over the edge, which is our inability to emotionally connect with the consequences of what we're doing. If for a single moment we could feel what we're doing, we would stop.
I understand.
But we do
It's
not.
interesting because you take images that all of us know of the girl running down the street naked in Cambodia, you know, or something like that. And we say that wasn't strong enough. It won the Life of the Year award, but it wasn't strong enough. It didn't stop everybody and say, holy shit, what are we doing here? You know? So what would be strong enough to do that? And you say, well, psychedelics, but that's it's in a one-on-one thing. I mean, we're talking major game players at this moment. Put China into your computer. You know,
how do you deal with that?
I mean, either you're spraying it, or it's butter, or it's some other level of consciousness that does it. There is a certain level of trauma that's possible that can soften the ground. Right? Not 3 Mile Island and not Chernobyl, but I mean, I don't want to create this with my mind, but I can imagine a certain trauma, like in Marin when they ran out of water. It was interesting. Suddenly all the ego barriers and everything, and neighbors were talking who'd never even met each other.
People were taking
and
showers together.
A whole process was happening. I'm sure marriages, babies were conceived, everything as a result of that trauma, of that denial. So a massive, significant trauma. I just got to tell you one scary image. There's a saint in India who lived up to about 1930, I think, or something. And one of his devotees said to me, one night he was sort of looking off in the distance, and he said, there'll come a time, he said, when you'll walk 5 miles, and he said, you'll sight the light from a fire of another person, and you'll be so happy to know another person exists.
Quite a prediction.
Isn't that quite a prediction?
And this next clip is kind of sad because it's Terence McKenna's final interview. Yes, he passed away in the year 2000 due to a very rare form of brain cancer. And these legit are the final words ever heard in public from Terence McKenna. So enjoy and rest in peace, Terence McKenna.
Your recent journey, facing whatever it is that you've faced, death, whatever. I mean, has there been any revelations for you about your journey, about death, about where you're going?
You mean you're referring to the fact that I have glioblastoma multiforme, which is a form of brain cancer? Well, I wish I could say I'd had more insight into death. I've had a fair amount of insight into dying, which I find a very alarming prospect. Death itself is so far beyond ordinary experience. The threat of dying doesn't really move you toward understanding it. Death is the great mystery around which religions are built, and being able to say, I know what it is, I know how it works, is the way you start a congregation and get a little community going. I would say the big surprise for me was I'm not afraid of death the way I thought I would be. It's just such an intellectual question mark that you just move to the next page, because there's nothing to be said about death except that it seems to last rather a long time.
If you have one thing that you wanted to say to people from all your learnings that you've had, through your life, what would that one message be to someone?
That following your own curiosity is a better method for exploring the world than any of the methods offered. Sheer curiosity is the thing that I've always let carry me along, and I have no regrets about any of this. I think it's worth the life to put these issues in front of people.
All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Your Drug On Brains featuring Terence McKenna. If you like this video, then subscribe on my Patreon, where I have exclusive clips of Terence McKenna that only you can get on my Patreon. So go subscribe, do it now. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment. I read all of them. And of course, follow on X, TikTok, and Instagram @Tipado.